I'm Al McFarlane. Welcome to Conversations with Al McFarlane. Glad to be here and glad to have you along. Hope you had a great weekend and having a wonderful, productive, fruitful Monday. I was over on West Broadway for a few minutes this morning with the grand opening of the new West Broadway U.S. Bank. And so glad to see them back online. They are one of the pillar institutions in our North Side community. And actually, the place is just beautiful, really well done, reorganized, friendly, inviting. And I connected with Ravi Singh, who's the branch manager, and a number of local and some of their corporate people from downtown up in the neighborhood. And I expressed my confidence that them rebuilding after the destruction of the uprising following the death of George Floyd, and that's one of the businesses that was targeted. But they're deciding to come back better and stronger was the right decision. That what companies need to do and have to do is show up, be present, and begin to make what I call transformative investments in our community to do business in ways that they haven't done before. So kudos to the people at U.S. Bank and to my friends over at the West Broadway office of U.S. Bank. I want to kick it with Diana and Andrew first. Diana and Andrew, my co-host from Hawthorne Neighborhood Council, kind of the inspiration behind this leadership session that we do every Monday. How are you guys doing? Diana, how are you, first of all?
I'm great, Al. How's everybody doing today? Every time I hear this song play, it just opens my mind. So thank you for playing the song on Mondays, because I look forward to hearing this particular song because it just rejuvenates me. But
I'm glad you said that. Here's what I've been thinking about. So one of the other shows that I do, one of the guests on it said, he's in Ohio, and he wondered if I could send him a copy of the show without the intro music. I like the music. It's a pleasure and an honor to have work by Gary Hines and Sounds of Blackness opening the show. But his comment was, it takes 2-3 minutes and people's attention spans are so small that they might not stick around while the video is being played or the song is being played. So I'm curious that you said that, interested in getting feedback from other people here, because I think that the intro sets the tone.
Yes, it does.
For the conversation, and it gives us a point of departure. But I'm trying to also be attentive to the millennial gurus who say you got to grab people with the topic of the day in the first 5 seconds. So what are your thoughts about that?
Well, you can maybe shorten the song, but I don't say take the song away, because like I said, the music it sets the tone, and it's the panel. It sets the panel that we have, because I notice everybody be rocking to the music when they come on. That's a good thing to see.
Andrew, what do you think?
Hey, Al, good to see you and good to see everyone. Happy afternoon. You know what? I agree with Diana. I think it puts us in a place. It gives us a kind of a centering as to where we are, and reflection that all we say in this conversation is built on foundations of things that have happened before us, and allows us to make sure that we keep those things in the back of our mind as we have the discussions we have.
Great. Brenda, good to see you again. How was your weekend?
Fine, working hard.
Good. I'm Al McFarlane. This is our Monday edition of Conversations with Al McFarlane. We call it the leadership session, and our intent is to talk to candidates and incumbents in City Hall between now and the election, and other offices as well. But the purpose is to create ongoing, what I call robust conversation, a chance for candidates to argue their viewpoint, their vision, the reason they want to serve you, for incumbents like Jeremiah Ellison, who is here representing Fifth Ward, to tell what they've done and why they want to be reelected, and to have you, our listeners, locally and nationally, weigh in on important conversations. I was thinking today that what we're doing at one level is making the local global. Meaning we're looking at stuff happening in neighborhoods here in South Minneapolis and North Minneapolis, but our approach to this conversation has implications for communities all over the world. So it makes sense that this conversation is being carried on Black Press USA, because neighborhoods like ours are dealing with issues like we deal with every day. And this is about sharing. How do we build community and not live isolated, but rather engaged and connected lives? So let me begin by thanking Jeremiah Ellison and Mickey Moore, who's a candidate for 8th Ward in South Minneapolis, for being here. Others may join us. I'm going to start with you, Jeremiah. As always, our commitment is to have candidates who show up to take a few minutes to tell people about their vision, their candidacy, and why you're looking for votes to re-elect yourself to that office in November.
Yeah, absolutely, Al. It's great to be back on your show. I always love joining you and appreciate the work that you do. It's really important. And so thanks to all you guys. I'm just really excited to be out here having conversations with my neighbors this summer. It's really important that we have elections because, quite frankly, these seats don't belong to any one person. They belong to the people. And if you're not checking in with the people, the people are going to let you know. And so I really appreciate what I've been able to do this summer and what I've been able to do these last couple of years in office. I was able to present a proclamation at the Northside Summer Games at North Commons the other day. It was a huge event, and I'm excited to see them continue to build that program over the course of the next 20 days. During my time in office, I've really tried to focus on issues related to housing and economic development, and I think we've done some really creative and innovative work on that front. We have the Commercial Property Development Fund. I was a critical part of developing and creating that fund. It's a brand new fund, and my goal was to make commercial space attainable and affordable for people on the North Side, for business owners on the North Side. For folks listening, you'll know that a lot of our commercial space is owned by, either wealthy individuals that don't live in our community, or sometimes not even individuals, just, faceless entities that investment entities that just own up properties all over the country. And I wanted to put us in a position to be able to own our own community, not only the housing, but also the commercial space. And so, recently I've seen folks that we all know. Kenya McKnight was able to get an allocation from the Commercial Property Development Fund. And when I think about the time that I spent creating that fund, these are the types of people that I had in mind. No specific names, but these are the types of folks in our community who I've seen doing great work, who I knew could really benefit from a fund like this. Folks like Jamil Ford and Calvin Littlejohn and others are being able to utilize this fund in order to own buildings on the corridor here. On the housing front, making sure that we have the type of housing that Northsiders can afford, both on the rental side, but also on the home ownership side. And there have been some times where I've been celebrated by community members for the type of housing that I'm pursuing. And there have been times, Diana can tell you where, we've tried to put some affordable housing on the river, and we've had folks who don't want to see affordable housing on the river. And it's not to disparage any of our neighbors who we might disagree with, but it's just to say that we've got to have housing amenities for all people, and we can't have certain portions of our community, the river being one of them, relegated only to the wealthy, right? We've got to have affordable housing amenities there, and so I've had to fight hard for that, even when it's unpopular. And of course, we are still very much so living in the wake of the COVID-19 virus and the recovery that's going to have to come alongside with that. And we're very much so living in the wake of the murder of George Floyd and all of the conversation around safety that has coincided with that. And so I'm working hard to make sure that we are having that we're keeping our community safe in this challenging time, in 2 summers where it's been really challenging to keep our community safe. So I'm working on that, working on making sure that I expand public safety so that it's not only that we're asking police to carry every burden, but that we are creating other forms of emergency response that can get to community members and keep people safe and keep people alive. And so I'll end it there because I could keep going on and on, but I know that other folks other folks want to hop on and jump in. But I'm just excited to be on the show, and I might have to dip out a little early, but I always want to try to stop in and have a conversation with you guys.
Appreciate it. I wanted to ask you a couple of things. One, what's the big development on Olson Highway across from Harvest Prep, up the street from Summit Academy on that side of the street? And I just left, as I said, West Broadway U.S. Bank. They opened, grand opening today. Very nice, very well done, very necessary. But I drove up Broadway Avenue, and on the right or the north side of the street, there's like 6 blocks, it seems like, or 3 or 4 blocks of development, and it appears to be housing. Give us an idea of what that is. Both of these are housing things. And what else do you see happening in housing? You mentioned the problem of the project on the river. What's the status of that? Where does that stand? So
the project on the the project on the river, as far as I know, it's proceeding forward. There's a mix of affordability there. Everything from 30% AMI all the way to 80% AMI, right, is going to be existing right there on the river. And so we're going to have folks having access to the river.
Is that on the Broadway Pizza site?
That's going to be on the Broadway Pizza site. As of right now, Broadway Pizza is still there. Last I drove by, it was still open even. And so, these things are, so these projects do take some time, but on the back end, right, on the planning side, the project is very much so still in motion, and that affordability is going to be there. On West Broadway, there's phase 2 of Broadway Curve. That project has taken a long time to come to fruition. It started several years before I even got into office. That project was in the works, and there were some real challenges, I think, to get that project done. And I know that a number of community members really frustrated with the fact that and really doubting whether that developer was going to be able to make that project happen. It's happening now.
So what is the project? I mean, here's both an opportunity, but also a problem. And that is that I own the newspaper, but I don't have any idea about that project. Point is, from my point of view, nobody's reached out to let our community know. So growing up, or it's like one day you're driving down West Broadway, the next day you see cranes everywhere or the street torn up, but nobody took the time to tell you that this is going to be going up so that you can both be prepared or support or oppose.
Sure.
So,
well, I think that's just a result of how long the project's taken. I mean, maybe 8 years. I think that project's been in the works.
And in 8 years, nobody's reached out to Insight News to say, here's the update. Here's what the issues are. Here's what the problems are. Here's what the opportunities are. So I'm saying that as a general criticism for leadership, and hopefully, you and others will hear this.
Yeah. Wow. Well, I'm a little surprised to hear that, because I feel like it's one of those projects that I've heard the most about in the last couple of years. People have had a lot of questions and a lot of concerns about phase 2 of Broadway Curve. You'll know that the first phase was done, well before I was in office, and the second phase was started well before I was in office, and so I've heard a lot about it. It's a housing project. I think it'll be some rental, and my understanding is that as you get more to the west side of that project, there will be some townhomes that'll be for ownership as well. And so that's the project, and I'm happy, Al, to talk to you more about that project. But I'd say sometimes the way that I receive information, it can seem like a lot more than maybe it is to the community. So sorry if I had a disproportionate sense of how much people were engaged with that project, but it certainly has seemed like folks have been engaged, have known a lot about it. But I see
Diana has a comment.
I just, in fairness to you, Jeremiah, the project was started a while ago. Mm-hmm. I first heard about this project when I was on the West Broadway board, but it kind of hush and went away. You didn't hear anything. And like you said, nobody really reached out. So in fairness to you, Jeremiah, you're absolutely right. The project, it was about 10 years ago, this project really started. Okay.
And I'm happy to give an update on this project, and maybe even a little bit of a chronicle, because I know that I've had to get several updates. And I'll be honest, and if the developer probably won't want to hear me talking about this, but there have been several moments along the years where folks have said, this project should go back out for bid, and it's something that I considered. And I know that a lot of other folks urged me. They said, no, this project's almost there. We're going to break ground any moment. And so this was one of those projects where you come into office, and and the project is a little bit older than you, and so you kind of have to figure out, okay, what's the cost benefit here? Am I going to be restarting the 10-year clock if I put this thing back out for bid, or am I giving this person too much time? It's sort of one of those things that you have to balance.
Who's the developer?
The Sherman and Associates is the developer.
Okay.
What I think is funny, you asked about the Olsen Highway development, which stands, I think, in stark contrast to the Broadway Curve development. It's a development that has existed within my term, right? Mm-hmm. And so the inception of the project started early in my term, and now you're seeing them break ground and you're seeing them build right there on the site. That project is actually a really exciting one for me because the townhomes, the Olsen townhomes that sit behind that development right now, those townhomes are so old, and they were built at a time when developers in the city didn't necessarily know how to build on top of infirm soils, and the soils there are infirm, right, back in that area. So what you've had those townhomes over the last 30 years sinking into the ground, having to be either cranked up or renovated, having water issues, having flooding issues in the basements, and all the while they're sinking. The development that you see on the corner there is going to replace those townhomes, but very much so that the townhome residents were involved in that development. So the new units are going to be are going to have the same square footage of the townhomes that you've seen. A lot of the folks who have lived in those townhomes have lived there for decades. They've aged in place, and so they have some of them are excited to no longer have stairs that they have to go up and down. Some of them have not been able to utilize their basements, and so by having the same amount of square footage in their new units, it actually feels in real time like they're getting
more space
because they haven't even been using their basements, which are factored into their overall square footage. If they have mobility issues, they'll now have an elevator and other things that they can utilize to get around. And so and I think that this is the most important thing, and I don't know how we bottle this and package it towards other redevelopments, but the people who are living in those townhomes didn't have to move while that new housing was being built. And that has been a major issue when it comes to redevelopments. You want to give people dignified housing. You want to make sure that people have a place to stay. But so often, redeveloping someone's old housing requires that they move for an indefinite amount of time, right? While the developer figures out all the nuts and bolts, right? So here we had an opportunity to build the new housing right next door to the old housing so that the people could continue living in their townhomes. And when the new housing is up, they can just move right across the street. Nobody was displaced. Nobody had the inconvenience of having to find somewhere new to live for 2, 3, 5 years. At that point, the likelihood of people coming back to the housing that's been developed for them is really low. And so we actually really got, I think, really lucky with that project. And I think that when we're able to clear the townhomes, I think there's going to be a lot of potential for even further housing to be built. Home ownership opportunities, or more housing to be built along that corridor that could really serve the neighbors, and nobody had to be displaced in the process. That's a big deal.
And so how many units are being built right now, and how many units are going to be displaced when the old townhouses come down?
You know what? I got to admit that I don't know that information right off the top of my head.
No
problem. But I can get you that information, and I'd love to do. Maybe we can work together to talk about both specific projects, but also the number of units that have gone up in the north side, the number of affordable units.
I'd love to do that. I'd love to do a separate program with the developers where they come on and talk about their vision and maybe some community stakeholders, so people can say what they are expecting and are looking for, and what accountability looks like, et cetera. Finally, Jeremiah, was the last question. What about light rail? I understand that right now the discussion is that the Bottineau line that was going to come through Worth Park is likely to come down West Broadway. Can you give us an update on light rail in North Minneapolis?
Absolutely. I mean, I think those projects are very much so. That discussion is very much so in the works right now. And I think that anybody with an opinion should be reaching out to my office, reaching out to the Met Council, reaching out to the county to talk about what you want to see with the light rail project. We ran into an issue with the private rail company where, we reached an impasse. We weren't going to be able to use their right of way in order to build a rail line. And so that meant that
and their right of way came through Worth Park, right? Is that the
yes,
one that?
Yeah. It, like right outside, like once you get down Olson, it was going to turn up and go down the BNSF line, and that was going to sit right on the border of Golden Valley in Minneapolis.
Mm-hmm.
I think that there's always, once you get a project that far into the making, and then you pull the plug on that project, again, this is one of those things that, again, started well before my time in office, but since I've been in office, I've been very involved with these discussions. The truth is that, places like neighborhoods like Harrison kind of got the worst of both worlds, right? They got all the displacement and gentrification of anticipated transit-oriented development, right? But then they didn't actually get the transit line, right? And so that's a real tragedy. I think that the county, that the city, and we're going to have to rectify. We're going to have to create some remedy for neighborhoods that didn't get the transit and got all the gentrification and none of the transit. That being said, we
and
also
for Harrison to get it meant coming down Olson or coming down Glenwood.
Olson, just
right.
It's
so
so
that
close.
will be
So,
okay.
It's so close.
Right.
To that line. I think that so that's some of the downside, and we cannot allow ourselves to forget about the neighborhoods that didn't get the immediate transit. I also think that one thing that I think was actually kind of inappropriate whenever it was proposed was that safety along Olson Highway was sort of promised along with the light rail. And so, we've got some real safety issues on that road. Are we now saying, oops, you're not getting a light rail, you're not getting safety? Also, safety never should have been a condition of the light rail. Safety should have been its own priority along Olson without the light rail. And so
Olson is dangerous for pedestrians.
Olson is dangerous for pedestrians. And so that's something that we have to fix, on several levels. That's an issue that we have to address and that we have to fix. And safety on Olson should have never been conditioned on light rail construction. That being said, the light rail may now, we may have an opportunity to see it be more of an asset to the north side as opposed to kind of going around North Minneapolis, right? There's a proposal for it to go down Lowry. There's a proposal for it to go down West Broadway. I think that there's maybe an assumption that it's more appropriate to put it down West Broadway, but I think that you talk to folks like Philippe Cunningham and you talk to other members of the community, I think they've got some compelling reasons for why it should go down Lowry. I'm at a phase right now where I'm trying to be as open as I can. I don't want to be biased and say put it down West Broadway because that's my ward, but I want to be as open to the facts as possible.
But if your constituents say
yep,
they want it on West Broadway, that's what you're going to say, right?
That is absolutely what I'm going to say. I think what I've heard so far is that folks are excited, but they've got concerns. That's what I've heard so far, is that folks are excited, but they're worried about displacement. Folks are excited, but they're worried about, transit-oriented development. They're worried about the construction. Businesses worried about the years and years of construction. And so I haven't yet heard a mandate from my constituents that they want me to fight to put it down West Broadway. But I also have not heard a mandate to avoid West Broadway either. So right now, for me, for my purposes, I very much so and consider this debate active, and I want to see the best possible outcome for the north side.
And in my mind's eye, I'm hearing or seeing, if West Broadway is chosen, a line that comes down to Lindale and then veers south on Lindale down to the stadium, which is the end point, or something like that, or what, or is it cross Lindale?
Yeah,
warehouse district.
Yeah, I think it would be good next week maybe for me to send a couple of the proposed maps ahead of time, and you could blow them up on your screen here.
Yep.
Because there's a few. I think there's there's at least like 3 or 4 different ways to get from the Twin Stadium to North Minneapolis that are being proposed, and I think that they all have some validity. I think they've all got, none of them are perfect. I think none of them are the most perfect solution. But they've all got some valid reason. Whether it's Lindale, whether it's Washington, I think that we've got a real opportunity to we've got some options in terms of getting the train from downtown to the north side.
Okay, great. Thanks. Hang out as long as you can. And I don't want to deprive the other candidates an opportunity to respond, but it's good to spend more time with you. We've missed you a couple of times, and thanks for being here. Doing this every week. Come by every week because I'm asking everybody running against you to show up too.
Absolutely, absolutely.
My goal is to get as much conversation as I can so that people feel connected to the pros and the cons and to the opportunity and the challenges at every level.
Absolutely.
I was going to say congressman. No, council member. Thank you so much.
Absolutely. Did somebody? Was there one more question? I do gotta go, but I see somebody put something in the chat. I just want to make sure I didn't leave anybody hanging.
Well, Andrew, go ahead and ask the question, Andrew.
Yeah, and I understand this might be longer than time you have, but you mentioned making sure that our small businesses, especially on the north side, are continuing to prosper, or that they just have opportunities. Especially as we see rents go up. Last year, 2019, I think it was passed. San Francisco passed a new ordinance where landlords are taxed an increasing amount of money based on their square footage as their building remains vacant. The idea being that they don't want to, I think it starts at $250 a square foot, and after 2 years, it's $1,000 a square foot. Mm-hmm. And the idea being, while they're waiting for Starbucks, since they're not willing to rent it out, we'll force them to rent out at a lower cost to maybe someone local who couldn't afford those astronomical rents we see now in commercial spaces. Has the city council considered doing something like that? Or is that something that, just because we're starting to see this crisis, it used to be just uptown, but now throughout the entire city, of vacant storefronts and landlords that are willing to just sit on them until they get their asking price.
Yeah, absolutely. This is a conversation that I'd say has not reached a fever pitch on the council. I was introduced to this concept my first year in office. I love this concept. I think it's really important. Obviously it would support incentivizing filling a lot of the vacant spaces in North Minneapolis. But I feel like the folks that could benefit the most from this are folks downtown, with the vacant spaces that they have. And so I know that I've talked to folks. I hope he doesn't feel put on the spot, but I've talked to Steve Fletcher and other folks about this concept. And again, it hasn't quite reached the level of traction to where, there's a proposal on the table. Again, so many council members, so many policies that need to get passed. We're looking at things like tenant opportunity to purchase that take a lot of time to dive into the details and get done. So it hasn't reached the level of priority where there's something, where there's a draft that we can respond to. But it's a discussion that's happening at City Hall for sure. And I think it's a needed discussion, and I think it could help put some pressure on these businesses, especially with these transit-oriented development or TOD conversations. Folks start seeing TOD opportunities, and they really want to sit on their property and get $1 million for some worthless parcel. I think that a policy like this could maybe dissuade people from doing something like that.
Thank you.
I think that's part of the huge disconnect between this council and the needs of our city. Is that a proposal like this, which is so exciting and could bring relief to the people of Minneapolis, the council is sitting on. And I kind of feel that's because there's not a lot of experience there in the council when it comes to small business or entrepreneurship opportunities. I mean, there are no real entrepreneurs on the council. Additionally, it's not something that directly affects their well-being or economic well-being or day-to-day life. Similar, that question could be applied to all the vacant units in many of the market rate new developments that are going up around town that are sitting empty as well. We know that in Loring Park, a lot of the local corporations own a plethora of these units and they're just sitting on them. Or it's out of town investors. And so our council is not defending, the common working class family or young person who even maybe has a corporate job that's looking to get into the market in a home ownership or veer off into their own entrepreneurial endeavors in this city. And that's a real problem, I think, for us.
Can I respond to that just real quick?
Go ahead, sure.
Yeah, I would say there's a lot of really important policies, right, that didn't get passed until this council was in office, right? Advanced notice. Would you like me to respond? You keep interrupting me, I don't know what's going on. Okay, so like advanced notice of sale was a policy that took 7 years to draft, right? Tenant opportunity to purchase would increase home ownership, and it's still very much so a complicated policy that several council members are working on. Rent control, whether you agree with it or disagree with it, it's a policy that people support, and that I'm currently working on. I'm actually author on TOPA and rent control. We're working on changing how we do, how we keep people safe in our city. People have been having this discussion for a long time. I guess the question is, which of these policies, understanding also tenant opportunity, not tenant opportunity purchase, the commercial property development fund, which is working in allowing Northside businesses to buy Northside commercial properties, right? Which one of these priorities should people set down in order to pick something up? It's not a matter of, whether the policy is worthwhile, but quite frankly, it's a matter of capacity and which policies are getting pursued.
I agree with you, Jeremiah, and I agree with you more often than not, and I'm excited to work with you on some of these things. But I ask you, don't give cover to Goodman where Goodman has failed. A lot of times I understand that my criticisms of the city can be felt by people broadly. You said it yourself, this could be beneficial to downtown. I'm here saying, thank you for raising that flag. I'm telling you this. This is principal to my candidacy challenging Councilmember Goodman. She has destroyed local small business in the downtown zone. She has prohibited affordable, deeply and truly affordable housing where it needs to be. She has stood against, so did Council Member President Bender, stood against in 2017 any type of rent control. I and Ginger Jansen were the only ones to kind of champion that. And I still do, but much more nuanced than some of the groups are talking about now. So I just want to be very clear with you, brother, that I'm not here challenging you. I'm challenging the system as it's being maintained by Council Member Goodman.
I hear you loud and clear, brother. I gotta go. But I really appreciate you guys having me on. And again, I'm gonna make it a priority to hop on every week with you, Al. If I miss you, it's only because something critical came up. But either way, you're gonna see me more often than not.
Perfect. Let me bring in Mickey. You've been quiet, but I know you got a lot to say. And you and Tekken are here. Thank you both for being here. Tekken, thank you for flagging the things that you think need to be flagged. And I thank you for being specific. I think it's appropriate that you call out the council president and the incumbent. And I think that's the kind of conversation we have to have. That's principled. It's more principled because you are saying exactly, what you see as a problem, and you're not spinning it with nuance. You're being precise and to the point. And I appreciate that.
Before Mickey comes in, part of that is because I live this daily experience close to the streets, to the sidewalks of the city of Minneapolis, specifically here downtown. And in that, I kind of stand alone in terms of my daily lived experience when it comes to these particular topics, right?
Mickey, jump in. First of all, if there's a passionate item that you want to talk about as a candidate, a driving issue, and weigh in on the conversation, I appreciate Councilmember Ellison's recapitulation of the things that he believes he's done and delivered. And like I said, some of the things I'm the newspaper and I didn't know. And part of the problem is a failure of developers and doers to be intentional in ensuring that our community is aware and engaged and apprised, right? And so that reflects this perennial sense of invisibility and marginalization when policymakers and business owners don't think they have to say something to us or figure that they talk to us and we got it in the drift, the trickle down, but it's not true. So go ahead, Mickey. Good afternoon. First of all, thank you for being here.
Well, thanks for having me, Al. I love coming on, and let me just get my 2 cents in on the opening of the show. The music is fantastic. I'm a Gary Hines fan from the early days, so Sounds of Blackness, I can't get enough of it, but I'm biased.
All right.
Well, let me tell you, I don't want to detract too far from the conversation that we've already gotten deeply into. So let me say a few things about business development. As somebody that's owned businesses in this city for the last 30 years, I could have used that commercial property development that Councilmember Ellison was touting back in 1997 when I tried to start the braid factory on Broadway and DuPont and spent 3 years fighting against difficult public safety issues and chronically absent landlords and an entire street front that was just in complete distress and nobody wanted to fix it up. I tried for almost 3 years by myself as a singular business to change the entire street. And I got no cooperation and no help. And ultimately it was kind of a failed experiment. I just couldn't continue down that road without any support, without any additional resources that it would take from a city, from a county, from the state, from some program, from some foundation, from some organization, from some nonprofit to supplement the good idea that I already had of putting in a solid, winning, viable business into a location, a business that would still be there today, thriving, providing jobs, providing economic opportunities, providing service for the people that need it. If only I had a partner in the city that was willing to just do that little bit to help us out. So I think that there's opportunity there. But I think what Tekken was kind of diving into is that our city council has too often missed opportunities to properly message what they're trying to do. They take so long to get around to getting things accomplished. The programs that Councilmember Ellison was talking about, like he said, had started 8 years ago, 10 years ago. That Upper Harbor project started in 2014, and we still haven't decided what we're going to do with it. We need a council that is more effective, more efficient, has experienced leadership, has experienced professionals that understand the issues upon which they are trying to create policy and trying to implement these programs. We need people that actually know what they're doing and care more about collaboratively working to accomplish our shared goals than they care about their own personal political agenda, or that they care about their own little tribalistic small section of the city. One of our big problems, and we don't talk about this, Al, and we'll need a whole nother show to talk about this, is Minneapolis is a small city. We are 43rd in the nation in population, and yet we have 13 city council wards. Our wards are so small that a city council member could effectively argue for their own particular constituency and not have to even worry about what's going on 2 or 3 blocks away.
Except
and that allows them
in
to really create separation and distinctive viewpoints that don't lead to collaborative, common sense compromises, that lead more often to these polarizing positions that cause us to spin and spin with these issues and policies instead of just accepting our fate and moving forward to create something positive out of our situation.
I would say, Mickey, you're absolutely correct, except for Ward 7. Elliott and Loring, once you cross over Hennepin, I was just over there the other day talking to it's just a completely different reality. And for Ward 7 and downtown, that might be an issue. But other than that, I'm with you.
Well, one of the things we were talking about with Councilmember Ellison was development. And our city is in a very strange position right now. We all know that for years, for generations really, our council has prioritized gigantic development, whether it's what did he call it? Transit-oriented development, giant rentals, giant apartment buildings, giant commercial buildings, to the detriment of many of our other options and opportunities. Well, right now, what people aren't talking about, and what almost nobody is talking about, ahead of the 2040 plan, there was a rush by developers to get their project bids and applications and their permits in, so that they were grandfathered into this their choices before the 2040 plan. What we're seeing right now are those developments in practice and in development. But there is a huge gaping hole of no new permits, no new development, and developers are not interested in coming into Minneapolis right now for two reasons: the 2040 plan and the disincentivizing policies that we've got, and guidelines and regulations, and also the public safety issue. So if we do not solve our public safety issue and get back on track with the kind of policies and incentives that matter to developers, we are going to go years. It's going to be a chasm of time and space and opportunity without any meaningful development in our city at all. That includes downtown, that includes uptown, north and south. So I have a lot of developers.
Let me direct the traffic, Tekken, and let me call you, because when you both are talking, can't hear either one of you. So let me be the traffic cop between all the conversations. Mickey, as you were speaking, I was thinking about how the city did pioneer, maybe not pioneer, but was effective and aggressive in using tax increment financing to do major, developments throughout the city, downtown in particular. Our whole landscape of downtown changed because of tax increment financing. Major projects like the Lake and Nicollet closing, right? And other developments around town where incentives were there for big business to make big changes, and often, as you say, and as Tekken said, at the expense of and at the demise of small entrepreneurs, small businesses, et cetera. And so the question you raise is why then haven't the principles of leveraging the power of the city or of the county to deliver opportunity for small businesses, why hasn't that happened? Why has there been resistance to that? And it's good that maybe the project that Jeremiah mentioned is helping put Black businesses into position to acquire real estate and open businesses, but that should have been going on a long time ago.
Yeah, absolutely. And it's the only way things are going to change. As long as minority interests are held down and suppressed to the degree that they are in Minneapolis. If you look at other cities, Dallas, Fort Worth, Atlanta, Georgia, Washington, D.C., California, where minority interests are welcomed, and you can have big time minority owners of huge conglomerations and businesses and properties. It's a totally different story. It's a very welcoming environment and a very safe and equitable environment for minorities to get involved at that same exact level. But in Minnesota, it's a totally different story. It's almost like going back 60 or 70 years into our past history and looking at almost like a redlining issue, where it's very, very difficult to get access, to get financing, to get approval. The hurdles and the obstacles that minority owners have to go through just to get the same kind of opportunities is just unfair, and it's having the domino effect that you're talking about. Al, I mean, I've only had about 5 or 6 businesses in the Twin Cities, but 2 of them have been moved from eminent domain. Okay, what's the reason for that? Because the opportunities for minority businesses are always restricted to particular areas where there's always this chance, this higher than average chance of something detrimental happening. Your property could be bought out from underneath you. Gentrification, redistricting, revitalization, business changes on a grand scale can move you out at any time. And that's a very difficult thing for a business to be able to overcome, especially a minority-oriented business or a minority-owned business. And we need to be more protective in targeting our minority interests because they have a kind of separate value that's not always measurable. They have a special kind of quantity and quality of value that we can't always just put a number on. The type of jobs that are produced and created by minority business ownership are not the same as what you're going to get at a Target or a Walmart or Macy's or Sears. I don't know. Maybe Macy's and Sears are out of business already. I don't know. But the point is, when we have immigrant-owned and minority-owned businesses, the people who are getting the gainful employment and the economic impact from those businesses are our hardest to employ and our hardest to prosper demographics. And so we need to pay special attention to those groups and really target those groups with the kind of incentives that we have always in our city, we have always reserved for the highest end earners and the biggest developers and the deepest pockets.
Tech can jump in. Go ahead.
I enjoy having these Monday afternoons with Mickey because he says so much that I actually agree with because we both have been small business owners. And it's really important that I not allow my glorious history in this town to be washed away. I owned my own small business for 22 years. I have many of the same experiences, lost my space for many of the same things. I could tell you tons of stories. So much good things he says, but then he undoes it all by doubling down on kind of a trickle-down, developer-centered economics that has completely failed us for the last 24 years. And so that makes me not know if I can trust. Everything he says cannot be achieved by doing what he says we need to do, which is, create a city ever more available to developers, to their needs and their bottom line. Part of what I say is that, and this is a real crude thing to say, but, as a city, I'm tired of being the cheapest horse sold to the John with the least amount of cash. And I have to say it, because that's what's been going on in this town since the North Side was destroyed in mid-century last. I was talking with Mr. McQuitter, who, you may know, Mr. Howard McQuitter. Mm-hmm. And this morning we were talking about, it's almost like the city's returned to 1952 in terms of the exclusionary kind of energy that's pervading this city at this time. And so, again, I am in accordance with so much of what Mickey is saying, just like I was with Councilmember Ellison, except that they stop short of making that bona fide commitment to community. And that's the difference for me. I am not afraid of our community. My residence nor my legacy here is undisputed. I'm a member of us. And that's the difference that I bring in tandem with all of the knowledge that I see. We've been doing things wrong, and that's put us where we are. And so it's easy just to connect those few dots and get our community holistically back on track, or for the first time on track.
I imagine, Mickey, you don't agree with how he's described you.
No, I didn't quite understand. I'm saying that our city has this history of prioritizing big developers. Absolutely. To the exclusion and the detriment of small businesses, especially minority-owned businesses, and that has to flip. We need to flip those priorities. We need to start targeting small businesses and prioritizing the needs and issues of small businesses and stop worrying about the richest of the rich developers. They always find a way to make hay. They never have a problem cashing in. And if they don't cash in Minneapolis, they'll cash in Fridley, Coon Rapids, Brooklyn Park, Maple Grove, Savage, Chaska, Eden Prairie, some other place. We don't have to always constantly have 100% of our worry focused on the biggest developers. They're not going anywhere. They're not going to starve. Meanwhile, our own community sometimes and often does starve and is forced out and is forced into distressed positions where they appear to fail when it's really, like I explained about the Braid Factory on Broadway. we lasted there just 3 years. I consider that failure. Some people might consider that a success, on West Broadway. But it wasn't because we weren't successful. It wasn't because we didn't have customers. The Braid Factory had a ton of customers on West Broadway. Why we weren't able to maintain our location there had everything to do with the cooperation from the city, the issue of public safety, our ability to get more businesses to move into that location and not have nothing but vacant storefronts, bullet holes in the window, et cetera, et cetera. So we need people within our city council that have the practical experience of having owned businesses for decades, that know about all of the problems that small businesses, specifically minority and immigrant owned and oriented businesses, have to face in order to develop the kind of programs, policies, and targeted resources that people need in order to prosper. Our city, Minneapolis, has an awesome kind of base of support. You can open anything here, literally a garden, a coffee shop, pizza shop, any kind of business can be successful here. It doesn't matter where it's from. We probably have a business from almost every country in the world located here: Estonia, Kazakhstan, Bolivia. Everybody's got a business here of some kind. This is a global city, and it's very, very supportive. All we need are the underlying kind of conditions that allow everybody to prosper to their level, and that's achievable. Our city council has proven that they're willing to get involved in business. They're willing to get involved in business policy. It's just
Mickey,
wrong priorities.
Mickey, I think you're partly right in that there is this attitude that encourages people from anywhere in the world, any culture, to do business. But my experience is that same invitation is not open to Black people who are from here. And there has been a consistent resistance to, I think you were saying this, Ticken, giving our people the same, or maybe you said it, Mickey, the same opportunities that any other business gets. Yep. And I think we have to keep acknowledging that and point out where that rupture, where that blockage is, and expose it and dismantle it.
But even still, Mickey, I'm still kind of a little cautious, but that last that you just said gets me excited. I want to be honest with you. I mean, that gets me excited because, again, that's the kind of energy and vision that has been missing from this city council as it relates to local small business incubation and continuance.
Success. Yeah, and the messaging and the mentorship. And absolutely. We have to bring in the right messaging so that the city understands where we're coming from and what we're trying to accomplish. And then we have to partner that up with real-time, tangible mentors and programs of mentorship where people can say, okay, I have an idea. What's the next step? Well, here, let me take you under my wing and show you how to do it. And Al, I can envision you as being a big part of that program because of your tremendous history in this city. So, yeah, I think that there's the potential there to change it if we recognize and acknowledge it, and then we apply those abilities and opportunities that exist to make it better.
And if we're not receiving more nonprofit dollars but support, it's time to wean off of that nonprofit system. Honest to God.
Let me ask you both to think about people you'd love to have on the program with you, whose stories or businesses or community organizations or interest, exemplify the points you want to make. And I'd love to have you bring on a friend, a neighbor, and the opportunities you're talking about. We're at the end of today's program, but I want to let people know about what's coming up with Hawthorne in the next several days. We've got the Northside Urban Coalition coming up, right? I think maybe Andrew, you can talk about the next several weeks so that people can plug into activities at Hawthorne.
Well, Diana,
go for it.
We have the Northside Urban Coalition. You can find the link on our website. That will be doing it. Sometimes we go a little longer. We will be talking about our Somali community and really focusing in on drug use and trauma within that community. That's one that we haven't touched on a whole lot recently, and so we're excited to do that. We have our backpack giveaway. We're still raising, or we're looking for donations of backpacks or in particular school supplies. This is something that we'd love to do in the fall where we give away backpacks and school supplies to youth who might not otherwise receive those. And then Diana, is there anything else I missed? We have the huddle coming up. No, we're not doing the huddle this month, or are we in August?
No, the huddle will be in August. We will have a huddle in August, and the focus will be on the kids, and they're getting ready to go back to school. So what do we need to help them? And there's other programs out there for the kids to graduate on time. So that's going to be exciting. And then the last thing Andrew is talking about is going to be our winter warmth, where we collect the books, and we're going to do that early again this year, because we know some kids are going to be going back into the school. So we feel that some kids are going to need coats before they actually do go back into the school, because we know that they don't have any. So that we kind of got our schedule full till the end of the year.
I also want to highlight on our.
Oh, sorry. We have some other activities going on with He-Man that we're involved in. We have a brochure that's coming out that's talking about opiates around opiates and pregnancy. And we're doing that with He-Man in the Minnesota Department of Health. And the last piece before I get back to you, Andrews, is we have a new app out around the opiates. It's a survey, and you can find that on the UAM website. Go ahead, Andrew.
I also just wanted to highlight, as we all know, the tenant evictions moratorium is coming to an end. And the process here in Minnesota for how that works is quite convoluted. It's not just a flip of a light switch. It's going to be pretty long, drawn out, and there are different qualifiers for when or how you could be evicted from your home. We have links to information on that on our website. The county does have some good explainers, but we ourselves are also going to try and put together better mapping for how this works. It's essentially a lot of if-then statements as to whether or not you can be evicted, but ultimately we just want to look out for our residents.
I want to say to Mickey and Tegan how happy I am that you guys have chosen to use this platform to talk about your ideas and your candidacies, and let you know how welcome you are and how grateful I am. And I think the community is that, number one, you've decided to step up. Number two, that you've decided to show up and you're able to talk and you speak with clarity and with conviction. I think that's important. It would be cool if, I'm just saying this as an editor, wanting to be both aware and connected and supportive. If you run across articles that you read, that you think highlight an issue, send me an email. Just send me a copy. And if you want to bring things up, I'm open for that. This is a collaborative venture, and your presence here is just really, really appreciated. Good luck, and my job is to make sure that you have every opportunity to have the best campaign, and I hope everybody wins. Okay.
Thanks so much, Al. That means a lot to me.
All right, guys. We'll see you next time. I'm Al McFarlane. Tomorrow on my program, I've got people from the Upper Harbor. I did a program, I think, Wednesday of last week, but I'm doing another in-depth look at the Upper Harbor terminal development tomorrow at 1:00 for the KFAI live broadcast. So join me tomorrow. I'm Al McFarlane. We'll see you next time. Take care. Bye-bye.
Oh, Queen Justice, where are you? Did they beat you up or no? Lock you on the ground, take the crown away from you? Oh, Lady Liberty, red, white, and blue. Did they take your dignity with their bigotry? Teach you that you're born to lose? Free or guilty, it's gonna get filthy. Better believe, roll up your sleeves. It's gonna get rough, it's gonna be tough. We all agree, we've had enough. We've had enough of all the rules you break. We've had enough of all the money you make. We've had enough, no more life at stake. We've had enough, this is a proclamation. It's been 400 years and we're 400 late. Together we stand from state to state. Going back in time won't make America great. We need justice now, people won't wait. Action, no more distraction. Every step we take, we gain traction. If it can happen to one, it can happen to all. United we stand, divided we fall. Free or guilty, it's gonna get filthy. Better believe, roll up your sleeves. It's gonna get rough, it's gonna be tough. We all agree, we've had enough. We've had enough of all the rules you were breaking. We had enough of all the money you were making. We had enough. No more life gets taken. We had enough. This is the proclamation. Free or guilty, it's gonna get filthy. Better believe, just roll up your sleeves. It's gonna get rough, it's gonna be tough. We all agree, we've had enough. We've had enough of all the rules you're breaking. We've had enough all the money you're making. We've had enough. No more life gets taken. We've had enough. This is the proclamation. We've had enough. Trayvon Martin and Tommy Rice. We've had enough. Michael Brown and Eric gonna pay the price. We've had enough. Philando, Breonna, George Floyd. What? We've had enough. So many gone. How can we fill the void? How can we fill? We've had enough. John Crawford, I know you've heard. We've had enough. Sandra Bland, come on and take a stand. We've had enough. Sean Bell, what the hell? We've had enough. Freddie Gray, did you hear what I said? We've had enough. This is a proclamation.